Okay, I think we'll go ahead and get started. Good evening, everyone. Hope everyone is doing well. Just a reminder that this meeting is being recorded, and I just turned the recording on, so welcome. So we're going to start by doing the regular roll call. So I will start with Tiffany Jones.
Here.
Alex Matthias. Cassandra James. Chris Engel.
Here.
Present.
Stephanie Cobb.
Present.
Is that you, Cassandra?
Yes, I just couldn't unmute things fast enough. I'm sorry,
you.
Michelle. Thank you.
No worries. Mina Diaz. Delon Jackson.
Here.
Mike Nail. Deborah Russo. Sean Smith.
Here.
Steve Greenberg. Jim McCulley, he told me he wasn't going to make it tonight. And Rosie Enriquez.
Here.
All right, so I guess we'll get started with any comments from the public. I did see that we have a guest on the line tonight, so if there's any public comments from the public, please raise your hand or state your name and you can just begin speaking.
Understood. Thanks.
So you did not want to speak at this time? You were just listening in?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, great. Thank you. All right, so moving on to the next items. So these are our discussion items. I did update the matrix for any input that I received up until, I guess it was when I sent the agenda out. So I believe it's up until August 27th. I hope you've been looking at that input. I don't know if you want to discuss that or if you're just going to consider adding that as part of your report, but we can talk about all of this as part of the report, which is the next item. So unless there's any comments on the matrix, I'll pause for a minute. Okay. All right, so we'll move on to the report to the board. As you know, over the weekend, we sent you, so our consultant Chris actually sent you a proposed format to consider. I know I talked to a couple of you that were at the last meeting, the outreach meeting, about what we actually need to provide to the board at this point in time. So I'm going to turn it over to Chris to see if he has any comments or if otherwise you guys can have a full discussion about your report. Go ahead, Chris.
Thank you. Sorry. Thank you, Michelle. I just wanted to kind of reiterate that I've drawn all of the community of interest maps that have been submitted through the 5 public hearings, in-person public hearings, and you've already received kind of the preliminary look at the first 3 groupings of maps submitted. So that I have those ready for the other 2 meetings, and I can send those to you tomorrow for your review and hopeful inclusion in the report. But beyond that, I think the focus, for the RAC really, as outlined in the email that I sent and Michelle as well, I think reiterated, was the input received in the analysis portion of the community of interest testimony. So beyond that, I'd love to hear your thoughts on the report and on the outline we've provided. And I don't know if you want me to share the report on the screen, if that would be helpful for the discussion, or how you guys wanted to go through this.
Yeah, I think putting it up on the screen would help.
So this is the document that I sent on Saturday, along with the map of the current COI submissions. And most of this will be filled in by either redistricting partners or and/or county staff. So the title page, the acknowledgements, table of contents, and the executive summary, and then as well as like the formation of the RAC. And so this is the section here that I think the RAC would focus on for their report. Basically, an analysis of the community of interest testimony that's been received. We can group it by supervisorial district, and kind of outline in each of the pieces whether it was received virtual or in person. And then I think the sections that would be, this can be kind of created by Michelle and I. But the biggest report, I think, is for each of the groups of committee members from each district to come up with a theme for the COI submissions for their individual district. And we'll have the map options as well attached to the report. So it's really the meat for the RAC, I think, is the themes from the COI data that's been submitted, either through email, through districtor, or in person with the placemat maps.
So Chris, I think that the themes should be across all districts, because I think that there's an opportunity in the report to talk about the by district, what input was received. But then if there's themes across the different districts, like if 4 districts all talked about dog parks, then maybe that's one of the themes we say they all brought that up. And I'm just bringing that up because that was an example that was used in some of the presentations. But so I was envisioning that section to have a little bit more of what are some of the similar things that maybe you see across the districts, because that will help also make the items that aren't significant across the district stand out a little bit as well. But
No, I think that's
I think we're up for input from you as the RAC, how you want to tackle the report. We thought about just putting a framework together to help focus you a little bit on getting to the report. We also put these sections in that we thought that we could help with, like the legal, the technology piece. And I'm going to have staff who have worked on our team draft some of that stuff for you. And then you can take that information and synthesize it into your report how you'd like. So it's not that we're going to give you a complete final document. We want to be able to give you information of what actually occurred. For instance, I can give you the statistics on the outreach meetings, how many people attended, that type of stuff. And then you guys can synthesize where and how you put that into your, in the report. So this was just a way to try and capture a big picture for the board. What have you guys done to date? What have you been involved in? And what did you hear from the public? That's more of what we're trying to make sure the board gets, because that's really what they tasked this committee to do, is to do the outreach piece. So love to hear your thoughts.
I think Stephanie had her hand up.
Oh, you did. Go ahead, Stephanie.
Okay, one of the things that we had that Chris talked about was for us to do it by districts. And one of the things I think a lot of people did was make sure, at least for the community meeting, that you went to your district. If we're blending what people said regarding other districts that were in it, some of us may not have gone to all of them, or you kind of focus your key of what you remember was just pertaining just to your district. So it's kind of hard. I know some of it did bleed over, but I know that when we talked, Chris, Mina, and I talked, we focus in on what the comments were for that were at our meeting for District 2, and then what was the common theme, and we've already started that discussion.
And that's exactly what we wanted you to do. So I'm not suggesting we take the by district piece out. I'm suggesting we put the by district piece in, but in addition to that, if there are common themes throughout the district, we call those out as well.
Okay.
If you look at the input received and analysis portion, where Chris suggested that you focus a lot of your efforts, you'll see that the first item is by supervisorial district. So that is where you would, put in the information for each district. And then the third item talks about the themes throughout the report. And those two can go one below the other. As Chris and I were brainstorming this, we just put in a lot of things that we thought would be a good structured report for you guys. All right, so Chris, do you still have your hand up?
Yeah. So this is kind of a little more of a logistics question. So as as each group is working on their own, their district, focus in on, what the common themes were in terms of communities of interest and the feedback that was received by district. I mean, where would are we submitting this? Are we submitting this to you, Michelle? Are we appointing somebody and putting it all together among ourselves? What's kind of how, because a lot of what you've got up here in this outline is is stuff that redistricting partners or county staff is going to be doing. So I mean, who's kind of pulling it all together to create the report and then the PowerPoint?
So this really is what you guys are supposed to be doing. I was just trying to give you a head start on this. I think someone in your group needs to sort of take the reins and put this report together. The pieces that we as staff will send over to you, we will we'll forward it on to whoever you guys have as your main person to put the report together. We're happy to also help if you're looking for, some help with, illustrating your report or maybe using infographics or whatever. But whatever it is that you need to display, we can help with that. But I think we need to start off the beginning pieces are let's put the report together in a written format. Once we have a good structure and most of our written pieces in together, then we can start looking at how to best illustrate it. If you wanted to, I put in there, like you can see under the title page, I put a logo /?. You guys can create a logo for yourselves if you want to use that for your report. I just put things in that I thought if I was writing this report, I would consider, and I know Chris did sort of the same thing when he provided his input. So this is really just trying to get you to a point where you have something that I think is going to be of value to the board, and that will be, a good presentation for the board. And then whatever you come up with as part of your final written product, we'll take that and that can go straight into a presentation, because once your report's written, you're really just talking about what you've already said. So I think your presentation slides will follow right after that. For the county, we do this all the time. We always write our reports. We get them once the report's done, we start working on how we're going to present this information to the board. We're not going to present all of it. We're just going to present them with some of the facts and maybe talk very lightly about what how we got to the point of the outreach meetings and that type of stuff. So I think all of that will one will follow the other as you go along. Did you have your hand up, Sean?
Yeah, I do. So I kind of spent, other than, you know, attending the meetings and these meetings and attending the District 4 community meeting, you know, I kind of spent time trying to focus on getting a template report in PowerPoint. I'm not sure if you saw what I sent, but I was just wondering if I'm not sure if you guys sent a report out because the one that we had wasn't acceptable, or I'm not sure. I was just wondering because I feel like I was spending a lot of time doing some of these things that now it sounds like you're saying that the consultants are apparently going to do, or that staff is going to do.
Well, we're going to help you with it. If you have the stuff already done, we're happy to not help you with it. We just wanted to make sure that we can get the information to you and in the report. I
Sure.
saw
So
the
like
template. I did see the template that you did. I saw a lot of it was based on data. And I know a lot of it was data that you were requesting. And so I was trying to get us away from the data piece because I don't think that is what the board's interested in hearing about right now, because we physically don't have data to talk to them about. We have to tell them about what we heard. That's what this phase of their redistricting project was, to get input from the community. If you look at the state's doing exactly the same thing. They're out there right now doing communities of interest input because they don't have the data that they need to do the map. So they're sort of doing the same thing. They're a little bit behind us, but that's the piece that we need to report to the board right now. The data will certainly come later, but I don't necessarily think it's going to form a part of this report.
So I have a follow-up question. What are we going to use an infographic for then? Like, what are you envisioning? I mean, usually that's based on data.
I'm not suggesting you have to use it. I'm just making broad suggestions of things. If you guys have something that you think you'd like to display, we can certainly help with that.
Sure.
I think that many hands are going to make light work here if we all provide some input for your report.
Sure. Yeah, I guess I'm just trying to make understand, as we talked about infographics, and I think everybody agreed that would be a good idea, but that's based on some sort of data. You can't make an infographic without information. So that's why I was trying to get information so we could present infographics to the board, because I think visually, you know, that would just be, it would make more sense than, I think, if, you know, writing a report is great, but visualizing it's going to be, I think, resonate a lot better. So I think that's part of why I thought that the data would be useful, is so that we can actually have an infographic that visualizes these different, you know, these different communities of interest or themes. So I guess I'm a little confused on that part of what data we're going to use for these infographics that I think would be helpful.
Okay, so help me understand how you were going to attach the data to the information you received.
Sure. So if we received a heat map of some of the metrics that we requested, then those would be a visual for a presentation, and those could make up a theme for the community of interest, whether it be across the district or within a district or across the county. So homeowners versus renters is one that I'd mentioned. You know, if all of them were in one district, that would certainly make a theme, correct?
Sure, but I think homeowners versus renters is something that's sort of not mappable because they're all integrated all around, right?
No, it would be a heat map. That's inherently, you know, you're just showing a concentration of something so that we can say that, you know, one district may have a, let's say, 80% homeowner rate, and the other one might have a 20% homeowner rate. And that, to me, would be a theme of at least one element of a community of interest that would be at least worth considering what it looks like, and then present, you know, because we're going to present themes, but we're not going to be able to pick every theme. We've got to kind of narrow it down to the most effective or the most meaningful themes. So without some of that data, I think it makes it a little bit hard for us to have a theme.
So are you suggesting then you are going to provide that as input to the board rather than what the board heard or what we heard at the outreach meetings?
Well, I think that, for example, I haven't submitted I haven't submitted anything to the website because I was waiting for the data to do the submit it. I think that was, so for example, I don't have any formalized submission to the redistricting website because I was kind of holding out for, some of the questions to get answered. And so is my information still going to count if when is the deadline to submit input?
So I did get asked that question. I've told anyone that has asked that we'll consider taking information up until mid-September, because I think we can still easily input that into our report if we get one or two more pieces of input. But I think I think at some point we'll have to cut it off so that we can finalize the report. But I did put something out on our website too, just letting people know that the meetings, however, even though the meetings are now completed, that they can still provide input through the website to us. So I'm guessing we will still see additional information.
Another follow-up question. At the beginning of the process, I thought that I was under the impression that we were going to be presenting. Is that something that are we not presenting, or is the consultant presenting?
No, you will be presenting. So I will probably introduce the item to the board, and then you guys, as part of what you come up with, you can present to the board. It can be all of you. I mean, one from each district. It can be however you want to present it.
Okay.
I think we will have to make sure we don't go over a certain allotted time for the agenda. But I think that you will definitely, you as a committee can decide how you want to present the information that you receive.
Sounds good. And just to clarify, that's the 28th of September?
Correct.
And is that in the morning or what time would you imagine that being?
It'll be in the morning sometime. I can request that this item be the first item on the agenda. I'm not always guaranteed to get it, but I can, just based on people's availability, I can certainly request that. And usually, if there aren't another bunch of presentations, the way the county's agenda works is they will first have they'll open a meeting, do roll call, and then they will listen to any items from the public, and they'll go and they'll also have presentations where, if it's a retirement or something like that, or it's National Black Infant Month or something, whatever they're trying to put forward. Sometimes there's 4 or 5 of those presentations. And then right after that, they'll do items from the public, and then they'll go into the consent calendar. That usually gets passed within a minute or so. And then the first item on the discussion calendar, I can request that we be first, but it may or may not happen. But we'll know closer to the time when the agenda gets put together. It's also going to depend on what the chair of the board wants, because he does see the agenda before it goes out, and if there's something critical that needs to be heard, then it's just so it will all depend.
Okay, no, I think that makes sense. I work for Napa County, so I know a little bit of that because I write some of the reports, but yeah, there's no guarantee on an exact time, but I think that's probably the best bet is being maybe the first item, just if we have, multiple people, then
yeah, I'll certainly suggest that. And usually I find that if I ask to be the first item on the agenda, I usually get on by about 9:45 to 10:15, so somewhere in that vicinity. But I would suggest anyone that is actually presenting to try and get on as early as possible.
Mm-hmm.
Michelle, are these meetings they're meeting in public now? These are not done
in person. Yeah, they are in person right now.
So we would be expected to meet in person?
Correct.
Okay, well, I'm gonna just be honest. I work at a school. I can't come in person because that would we're already got COVID running rampant through my school, and I don't want to step into an environment where I could potentially be compromised. So I may not be able to participate that day.
Okay, well, let me find out if there's an opportunity for you to dial in. It might only be by phone call only, but that would be better than not being there.
Yeah, that and I'm perfectly okay with that. I it's in the middle of my work day. I just can't pack up and leave.
I get it.
Yeah, I think it'd be good to figure out who's, now that, I mean, we know the time roughly, who's kind of interested and available to participate, and then should probably figure that out at some point just to see who's interested, because I think that'll probably, depend on who, how we break up the presentation as well. If it's one person per district and maybe one person does like an intro or something like that, it'd probably be, once we know who's participating, it should be pretty straightforward on, figuring out a way to break that up.
Yeah, I will also tell you that our board likes simple. They don't like things to drag on forever. So the faster we can move through things, the better off we are. They also like to be limited to slides. A lot of times we only give them 5 to 6 slides because they lose focus. So I would suggest that that's why I was suggesting that in your report that we put a lot of the written information, and most of what we should be presenting to them is what we heard at these meetings. I think that's the most important stuff that they need to hear at this point. What was the input that was received, or what are the themes of this communities of interest that they need to take into consideration when they draw these maps? And it's the same information that Chris and them are going to use when they do start implementing, the mapping process. It's all the same information they're going to be using. Any more questions? Is this an okay format for a report for you guys? I mean, we just put something together because I was getting a little concerned that we were, a little all over the place. I just wanted to try and get us focused in. And so I asked Chris to work with me on, from a professional standpoint of what they do in the field, what is the easy way for us to get a little bit focused and get this information in, and how we can help you guys to be successful and have a good report to the board.
I'm okay with the format. Thank you for doing it. Thank you, Sean, for pushing us. I'm just ready to kind of get the information in and submit it at this point.
If I can make a suggestion, on those digitally mapped stuff that Chris sent you as part of as an attachment to this template, you can use that data and the comments that you heard that you took notes on to write up a paragraph or something of each COI that was received. And then you can reference that, and we can use those pieces of that report as an appendix to your report. So you can reference page 12, this person did this, and this, and so I think that we should find a way of writing up like a report format, what we heard, but then have the backup information at the back that talks about, that illustrates those things. And then we can also take little snapshots of that to illustrate the report, but not be take up a whole page of your report. I envision your report to be no more than maybe 10 pages max, and then have all the addendums attached to it, where people can refer to if they really want to see that, the data that you're talking about. So, any more questions? Is there anything we can help more with? If you'd like, I can start working on maybe a skeleton of this report for you, or do you guys want to do that? I'm not sure what your availability is and your bandwidth to get this stuff done.
I think a skeleton would help. I mean, I can do some things, but I don't, you know, I don't have time to put the entire report together.
Okay. Yeah, so I think if we can do that for you, maybe that would be helpful. And then from there, you can make changes. If everyone's okay with it, I'm happy to start working on something to, you know, start getting there. But I think the written piece is going to be the most important piece for us right now. I did get our IT department to provide some information on the technology piece. And it basically talks about the website that was put together and how, you know, how we used technology to do virtual meetings and that type of stuff, because it's all stuff that occurred, but it was almost transparent to you guys. But I do think it's all part of the process of you guys getting to where you are, that we did all of these different things. So I see a question from Mary Beth regarding the attendance. So the answer is yes. I think the attendance was lower than what we wanted, maybe not as expected. I think the attendance was lower. We did consider that maybe right when we started these meetings that you know, California opened up after COVID, and that perhaps people didn't want to spend their new freedoms doing redistricting versus maybe going out to a friend's house. We also, this is typically not the type of project that people run out for. I think later on in the process, we'll see more attendance in the board hearings when actual maps are being discussed. So yes, it was a little disappointing, but I'll tell you what we've told the group here before. The state of California is experiencing much of the same problems. They have a very low participation rate at all levels throughout the state, trying to get input from the community.
Okay,
And
thank you
Chris,
for
know a
that.
little bit more about that, right?
I think just a telling tale of this was that they had a outreach hearing 2 weeks ago that was supposed to cover Sacramento, Yolo, Solano, Placer, and El Dorado counties. It was scheduled from like 9 to noon, and they didn't have enough participation to have the to keep the hearing going from like 10:15 till noon. So they adjourned early. So I think they had like 12 callers total. So I mean, it's depending on the region and the time, there is a lot less participation than I think everyone expected.
You know, if you put that in your report, that carries weight. That's not just Solano or, you know, District 5 or Vallejo. It's just across California. Because I know when I would, if I were brand new reading that report, I would wonder, and that would be a good thing to highlight.
Yeah, we'll certainly add that in to provide context.
Right. I've only made 2 of these meetings, so I'm right in there with everybody else.
Okay, so anything else relative to your report that I can help with, that you want to change? I would say you as a group should now take everything that you have, take the template, decide what you want it to look like. We can start putting together, like I said, a little a more showy template that will plug the written information in. But I think getting the written work done now is going to be the focus for you guys. And we might write up stuff and find that we're missing a section and we have to add a section, or we might find that you know, we've suggested something that we actually don't have enough information on. So I think part of it is, this is where the rubber meets the road, and we start getting busy and we write about all these things, and then we can start putting it all together.
Michelle, this is Rosie. I have a question.
Sure.
In any report I've ever done in my career, we always did a reflection or how could we improve the process for next time, even though I know it's 10 years out. But certainly getting the word out to the public in some kind of format. So for instance, you're speaking about the state of California for Solano County. I didn't see a darn thing anywhere on that, either on the media, social media, the news, newspapers, nothing that meeting was even going on. And so is there a section, will there be a section included that we could somehow say, next time around, even though it's 10 years out, we might consider doing X, Y, and Z in order to improve our attendance or improve whatever, data collection, whatever it may be that you think we could improve upon?
Absolutely. I actually have started making notes of things that I think the next person who gets put into my position to do a project like this for the county 10 years from now, I've started putting together the do's and do nots, because you certainly learn lessons along the way, and it would be so much helpful if you had some sort of guiding document. So yes, absolutely, you can add that. If you as a group feel that you want to include that in your report, please go ahead and do that.
Yeah, we call that project management. We call that lessons learned.
Exactly.
Like post-mortem kind of thing, retrospective.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm putting together all of that, from designing the website to the flyer that went out. I have a whole lot of notes of things that I think we could improve on and change, and that I didn't know going into the process. I manage this project like I would manage any other project, but it's you can't there was a lot of things we couldn't anticipate with COVID.
No.
Yeah, the mailing for sure was one of them. So yeah, absolutely. Whatever you think would be helpful for your board to know about what you guys did here, I think you should include in your report. And if it's something, completely ridiculous, we'll definitely tell you about it, or we'll tell you that that would be a red flag for the board. We'll try and help you so that we don't make, difficult comments in front of the board. We want you guys to look good in front of the board.
Will you be bringing the draft to the public before finalizing it?
The draft report?
Yes.
So yes, we could. I mean, it could be available as part of the agenda for one of these meetings. Certainly, you could.
Yeah, I'd be interested in it.
Okay. Okay, anything else we can help with relative to the report? If not, let me know if you absolutely want us to start a template. I know Chris has said it would be helpful. I'm not sure if that's helpful for everyone else.
You kind of echoed out there. Can you say that again?
So I was saying to the RAC that I had suggested doing some sort of template as part of the report based on the framework that we just put out, so we can start putting some, something to it, if they'd like. But Chris mentioned that would be helpful to him, but I want to make sure that the whole committee is okay with that before I work on that. If it's something the committee would like to do themselves, I am happy to do that too, because it gives me more time to do other stuff. But I just want to get us to a point where we have, we're all working on something so that we can get a good report out to the board.
I think it's an excellent suggestion, and we should focus on what we focused on, which was the community. Okay. The rest, like you said, Michelle, is kind of fluff.
Yeah, it's going to be phase 2 of the process.
Right. Yeah, and I say thank you for helping us with that.
Yeah. So I'm not hearing from anyone else about the template, whether you need that or not. So please let me know, because I don't want to work on something and then you reject it. I'd rather just hand it over to you if you want to work on it. So please let me know.
I think we said we want to see that, we want to do the template. We would like
Okay,
to
so
see that. And
I
then
heard that from Chris. I think you said you were okay with it. Is everyone else okay with it? Yes, no. Okay, I'll just go ahead. Okay, I'll just go ahead and do it, and I'll send you something in the next week or so, see what I can come up with, and then we can go back and forth on email with that. All right, so let's move on to the next item on your agenda, which is the meetings. I bring that up because I realize that there's only 2 more meetings before we actually in front of the board. I don't know if you wanted to consider adding another meeting for next week, next week, Thursday. It could be helpful. Maybe you want to do an in-person meeting. I could make space available at the county building if you're interested in doing an in-person meeting. If you just want to continue to do it like this, I'm happy as well. Or if you just wanted to rather use the time to work in your individual groups to work on the report, that's fine with me too. I just want to make sure that, you know, I give you every opportunity to talk as a group, with, you know, relative to getting the report finalized. Chris.
I for one would like to have another meeting. You know, I think we should have another one next week if that works with everybody's schedule. I'd also be, you know, open to doing an in-person meeting. I know some people aren't, and I don't know what the you know, if there was a way to have a combined in-person, and you know, for those that are willing and not in person, you know, to combine that together. I don't know if that's even practical. My technical knowledge is not very good, but you know, I'd be open to both of those things.
Okay. Anyone else have any thoughts on that? This is all up to you guys.
What would be the topic or the agenda for the next meeting in a week?
I think that meeting should be dedicated simply to you guys going over where you are, because you probably should consider having a significant amount of your information starting to flow into your report. Maybe we talk about where the gaps are. I think it should be purely focused on just your report and what the missing pieces are or what we can help with, or you guys as a group. Because the other thing is, just remember, if you're going to talk by supervisorial district in that one section, you probably want to have something that sounds like a similar voice. So maybe we, you know, you talk about, you look at how each other's writing styles are, and maybe we find a good medium for you guys. You know, you guys find that what's the best way to write up each section, because we want the report to look like it was sort of written by one person, but everyone should have input to it.
You foresee that as maybe the leads collecting it amongst the group and then working together to
and actually I would suggest maybe you use that time as the leads to get together to start talking about how you think that section should flow, and then because then it'll make it easier, you know, for you as you talk about each input that you heard. And you may not get the same information from each one because sometimes they skip a question or whatever, but you can just skip over that piece and then just, you know, keep going. So maybe there's a nice format that you want to put in for your and it might just be that you do an introduction for each district and then you have a table that shows something, or I don't know, I'm just throwing stuff out there. They, you know, reports have tables in them all the time. Maybe you have, you know, multiple things to say and then you have a little table, or you just have a map of some sort that shows, like, let's say you only got 5 pieces of input. Maybe you can show all 5 of them on a map that's a little bit more zoomed into that district. Any one of those things you can do. So I would suggest you maybe start talking between the leads on that, and maybe that's what you do next week. You use that time as the leads and not make it a formal meeting. Or, you know, I don't know when your next lead meeting is scheduled, Sean. I know you were taking the lead on that at one point, but maybe that's just, I'm just trying to make sure that we keep moving along.
Yeah, no, totally understandable. I think it should be cohesive. I think that, you know, between the leads working with the districts, I think we should probably be able to hash that out. And I think we met before this meeting, but Chris, Tiffany, and myself talked a little bit before this meeting, but I think it probably would be good to either have a meeting or at least just send out an email and just kind of try to see if we can agree on a little bit more of a narrow, beyond the skeleton that we have, just maybe kind of agree on, you know, are we just going to say, like you said, kind of have an introduction to the districts, and then however many COIs we want to, you know, I don't know what the magic number is, but, you know, there's probably a maximum that we want to consider. And then, you know, 3 to 5 themes, something like that. And then, you know, then once everything's together, then we can just make sure it's more cohesive.
Okay. Yeah, I think that would be, you know, you don't have to schedule a meeting, because if we schedule one now, I'll have to put an agenda out. It'll have to be noticed and all of that. If you just want to meet as the leads and come up with that, I think that would be fine too, because that's just a subcommittee that doesn't have to be noticed to be able to hash some of those logistical things out.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm happy to support wherever I can. I do have a question for Chris Chaffee, though. So, Chris, the information that we received through that's on the matrix, so that came through the online form. Is that going to be mapped out as well?
I was reviewing that matrix actually, and I can map some of them. Some of the portions I think are a little bit hazy on the description, but I would say probably 60-70% of them could be
Okay.
mapped. And actually, it's interesting that some of them kind of align to the maps we've received in the public hearings.
Which is some of the
with
themes we think we're going to see, right?
exactly, like the discussion on mapping all of the unincorporated portions, especially in the north and the east part of the county, that came out on Saturday and has also been submitted in the matrix, including like North and South Vallejo together. That came up in the first hearing we had in Vallejo, or the first in-person hearing we had in Vallejo. So there is some similarities, I think, between the email responses or the COI form submissions and the public map submission. So I think that would be probably a good, or could be a good starting point for the discussions on like the themes that have been seen throughout the COI testimony.
Okay, so if you could map those out, what would be your ETA to get that done? Because part of that would be part of what this group needs to include in the discussion or in their report.
Yeah, I was actually going to do that tomorrow so that you guys can have all the map submissions, like the atlas that I submitted to you guys by end of business tomorrow. So you'd have that over the weekend or to start work in, next week.
Okay. Perfect. So I think everyone has, I mean, there's a lot to work on. Like I said, I've already received some stuff from IT. I know that Ryan, who's on the call here tonight, if he hasn't left already, was going to be working. Oh, Ryan is here. So he's going to be working on some of the legal pieces that, we talked about. And a lot of this is we want you to report out on that because we did provide you with the legal training and, and to make sure that the board understands we all know what legal framework we're working in. So Ryan's working on something like that to include in your report. So we're trying to put those pieces together for you, which will make up a good context. Because just remember this report, you have to remember that if no one had anything to do with this project, if they picked up this report, they should be able to understand why this report has been done, right? And so that's the reason why we're wanting to put some of those front load those pieces in, because we definitely want to make sure that anyone picking this up at any given time and 10 years from now can see what direction we went when we moved forward with this. Okay. Well, exciting. So I'm not going to assume that you're going to do a meeting next week, and then we'll meet again on the 16th. In the meantime, you guys can work on all of the stuff. I'll be working on a frame, a template for you guys. I'll also be working on the transmittal report that will go as part of the board report, because your report will end up being an attachment to the submittal report. I have that halfway done already. Once I have that done, I'll send it out to you guys so you can see what it's going to look like. It's nothing fancy. It's not a long report. It's just pretty much telling them what they told us to do. And yeah, we are to present it to them. That's as much as what that report is. And I'll send that out to you as soon as I have it. In the meantime, Chris is going to work on getting you the final maps and stuff so that you guys can start figuring it out. And then you guys are going to be working on how to best present your by district, and then we'll find the themes in that. Does that all make sense to everyone?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes.
Perfect. I think we have a plan. Any more questions before I adjourn the meeting?
Really quick, Michelle. I've been playing with the District R. I love it. Oh my God, I wish they had this out when we were doing maps in Vallejo. So I just want to let the public know, if you want to play with this fun